Welcome to episode 90 of Think Big with Michael Zellner. All positive, no politics. My guest today is Charlotte Bevers. Charlotte is the owner of Clean Happy Homes in Denver, Colorado. She is also a certified 200-hour yoga teacher. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from the University of Pittsburgh. She is joining me today to talk about Asati Living, where she helps, quote, individuals and couples navigate partnerships and co-create more connection, intimacy, great sex, communication, and depth, unquote. Thanks for joining me today, Charlotte.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Michael.
My pleasure. Tell us something interesting about yourself that most people do not know.
Wow, something interesting about myself. Um, I, I mean, I guess I'll say that I am a military brat, and I was born in Vicenza, Italy. So that's something I'm really kind of proud of. I got to, have dual citizenship and um, essentially chose to be an American citizen at 18.
Right.
But I'm still able to get an Italian passport and travel that way. So that's
And some people might not know what we talked about before we came on the air, what you just told me about, why you ended up going to Denver.
that I love the mountains
Yeah.
and hiking, and it's the mountains really bring um, some joy and peace to me. So it's what made me move out to Colorado.
And like we talked about, it's just such a beautiful place out there. And I've been there a couple times and just love it. So I know you do too, for sure, especially the mountains, because yeah, it's just great out there.
It is. It is. We have great weather and all kinds of things to do, and we're kind of, Denver's just this like big city surrounded by this gorgeous mountain landscape. So it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. No, you talked about that. You were born in Italy, being a military brat. You guys traveled around the United States. When you were a kid, you consider Pittsburgh your home. Go Steelers, by the way, humongous lifelong Steelers fan here.
Oh,
Um, what are some of the memories of your childhood? Some of the few positive memories that you can, remember that stick out the most.
in general
In
or
general, yeah, yeah.
um, well, I went to elementary school in Indiana, and I grew up with just my dad, so a single dad, and he was putting himself through school, getting his master's degree. And so we didn't have a lot of money, and we traveled all around campus. We didn't have a car. And so we had a bike, and I always rode on the back of his bicycle
That's
to get
cool.
around town. And um, it was a lot of fun. I look back on it, and it's just very fond memories of doing that. And, because he didn't have a lot of help, I got to sit in on college classes too, as like a 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid. Um, so it was quite fun to do that.
And what you just said sort of transitions me into my next question because, when you were 12 years old, you wrote a note to yourself that you read every day. And it said, quote, I feel a lot of things. I'm working to be less reactive and more productive with my emotions and understanding myself, unquote. I mean, wow, Charlotte, you don't see many 12-year-olds that already are that in tuned and aware of their emotional self. I mean, I guess part of maybe is what you just talked about, sitting in on those classes, but how are you that way at such a young age?
That's a great question. Um, I think it's just kind of part of who I've always been. Just very in tune with my emotions, and it was just um, I my parents got divorced when I was really young, and it was a really traumatic experience for me. And I think I did a lot of without even understanding and really knowing what I was doing. I think I spent a lot of time really trying to understand myself and sit with myself and my emotions because of all of that.
Right.
Um, and I mean, I don't know if there was one thing that led me directly to that. I think that's just kind of innately who I've always kind of been or have slowly become. So it was just very, I don't know, wasn't wasn't very hard for me to do that.
Well, that is
So,
amazing though. 12 years old. I mean, being in around sixth grade to be able to have that perception and realize that is just awesome. So that's wonderful. You've done a lot of things after graduating from the University of Pittsburgh. From when I read, everything you've done, has to do with working with people to create positive experiences. From being in the mortgage business, a chiropractic assistant, weight loss counselor, you managed a Jimmy John's, and you were a lead host at Brown Palace Hotel and Spa. You were always looking for great outcomes with the people who you work for, who you work with, and your customers too. Where does that wanting to help people come from in you?
um, it's just something that I really believe in. I believe that that's how we build community and we build positive change in our world, is people just, helping other people, whether it's, in small interactions to really big things. Um, and I think that's part of why we're here, is to, help each other and live this crazy journey that we're on called life. And, it's not something we do alone.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Out of those jobs that you had, what would you say would be the most interesting one out of those jobs that I mentioned?
Ooh, most interesting.
Or
Um,
that you got the most out of?
I think honestly the weight loss coach probably put me on the trajectory of, doing my own thing. I really loved helping people in with their health and their health journey and trying to lose weight and helping them understand about true diet and exercise and what that looked like, and just seeing people's transformations, um, from losing weight and just getting healthier. And so I think that was probably the most, I don't know, impactful and fun. But I
Right.
think all of them have been a lot of fun in different ways for me.
You figured out that you had a lot more to offer of yourself, and knew that you weren't supposed to just be working to fulfill someone else's goals and dreams. So in 2015, you changed all that. You started your own business, Clean Happy Homes. If you would tell the audience a little bit about your business, why you decided on doing this, and about some of the growth that you've had since you started.
Yeah. Well, cleaning is something that I've always been drawn to. And as I actually did it as a kid. And honestly, it comes out of a it comes out of a trauma response, again, from like my childhood.
Right.
And it was a way of like controlling my environment at the time. And so during my parents' divorce and different things, I actually even cleaned for people at 8 and 9 years old, friends of my dad and my parents. Um, and it was just something that I got to be really good at. And in 2015, I really figured out I'm not meant to be an employee. It's not really who I am. And I feel like um, I can really provide and give more of myself in a more impactful way by doing my own business. And so that's when I started Clean Happy Homes. And um, gosh, the journey on that, I have learned so much. From just customer relations to just learning so much about myself, how to stand up for myself and how to ask for how to be paid well. And I've gosh, it's been so many things of doing that, but it has certainly changed me as a person and as a business owner. And I love it. I still have several clients, and I absolutely love going to see them every week or every other week. And I've built some really amazing relationships and met some amazing people in that journey.
Did you come up with that name?
I did.
That's great. See, that's what I'm talking about, the positiveness. I mean, even you turn a cleaning business, obviously the word clean in there, but you turn it into, Clean Happy Home. So it's, just projects good. It projects positiveness.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, I mean, that is definitely part of what I bring. It's, to um, help people have more time to do
Right.
things that they want to do and spend time with people they want to do, instead of grinding away at household chores, which for most people are not enjoyable and are a big time suck. So if
Right.
I can come in there and better their lives in that way, then that's a win.
Absolutely. You said, quote, most of us are born into this world with limitless possibilities. We learn and impose our limitations as we grow through life. These limitations only serve to keep us playing small, and most of us never do the things we have in our hearts to do. It's never too late to make a change and take a different path, unquote. You're the epitome of your own quote there, and you took control of your own future and made those changes, Charlotte. Why do you think that so many people just settle and never go after what they're truly capable of?
That's a pretty loaded question. But probably the basic thing that I would say is fear. I think most people get really stuck in the uncertainty and the unknown of how it's going to play out.
Right.
And honestly, at least here in America, we live definitely in a culture where we're taught to be an employee, from grade school on. Like that's what we're taught. You go and make good grades to get into college, and then graduate with a certain kind of degree. Then you're going to go work for someone and make a lot of money, or
Sure.
and so going against that takes a lot of courage and just I mean a lot of determination and persistence and ambition, as well. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just people get in their own way of, people like having a paycheck every 2 weeks and knowing how much money is going to come in, and that
Right.
security, and understandable.
Sure.
Because being a business owner, there isn't that security, at least not starting out. It takes a few years usually, and still there isn't that set security always. So I would say fear. That's the number one thing that makes people just, too afraid to take the risk and take a leap and try. And if you fail, you fail, but at least you tried, and,
Right.
you learn so much along the way. It's, we only have this one life that, at least we know of.
Right.
So you might as well go out there and try to do what you want to do.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind was the word fear. So when you said that, it hit home with me. And people were a lot of time, not everybody, we know that, but so many people were afraid of change. Change is hard. And when you have ingrained patterns of behavior, and I know you probably deal with a lot of this in what you do now, being a coach, that it's hard for people to see the other side of and see that they are truly capable of so much more, because they're just so set in their patterns, and change is just difficult for them.
It is. Yes. I mean, it's difficult for all of us. I
Right.
mean, honestly, it's not always something that's easy for me either, but um, I just, I'm a real, um, really big into just going after stuff and doing it and pushing yourself, and doing stuff that's uncomfortable, because it makes you grow and change. And, that's part of this, part of life as well, is just who you become along the way. Not always like what you do and who like your job title. It's who you grow into and become.
Right. I've always said that who you are is more important than what you do. And we've heard that, that's not something I came up with, but, it's so very true. It is so very true. Quote, after nearly 7 years in business and 7 years in a relationship that lost a sexual connection, I decided to apply my own experiences, knowledge, passion, and desire to help others in a coaching modality encompassing the areas of connection, sex, intimacy, vulnerability, and empathy, unquote. You decided to become a sex and relationship coach, for men, and started a Saudi living. I'm sure that took a lot of hard work, Charlotte. What steps did you take to be qualified to become a coach?
Yeah. Well, I've done some self-study, I've read a lot of books, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I kind of anything I get my hands on, that's kind of like what started this. And then I decided to enroll in the at the Somatica Institute in Berkeley, California, to get certified as a sex and relationship coach. And that's a year-long program. So that's, I spent some time and saved up money to do that. And I'm still in the process of officially getting certified, but I've completed my training in it. And then I've also did some self-study with the Gottman Institute, which is a science evidence-based therapy modality around relationships. And so I'm also completed training in couples therapy through the Gottman Institute. And yeah, I've also just been very interested in doing this for several years. I love, helping people and talking to them and seeing how I can help them. And so it just kind of took this journey of kind of getting there and starting Asati Living.
Quote, Charlotte is a great asset. She's very easy to talk to and promotes an open environment for discussion. An attentive listener with keen insight, she is always willing to open her heart and demonstrate deep empathy. She has great insight into couple dynamics, is able to see each person's perspective, and is quickly able to see the heart of the matter. She exhibits great ability to assess issues in a nonpartisan fashion, evaluating all the factors involved, yielding a gentle yet direct resolution. I always enjoy talking with Charlotte and highly recommend her, unquote. That was a client of yours, Jared L. And said that of you. And, two key things there that I really took from that wonderful testimonial to me were the words attentive listener and deep empathy. How important are those qualities in what you do?
Extremely important. Without empathy, I couldn't or shouldn't be a coach at all. That is something that is like absolutely essential, is being able to understand where someone is and their experience, to be able to feel and see what someone is experiencing and feeling is crucial to helping them, be able to open up and share and be able to make changes. They have to feel safe and seen and understood and validated for who they are and what they've been through and what they feel. And then being an attentive listener is also crucial, because it's important to be able to hear and understand somebody and really listen to what they're saying and what they're feeling. And they kind of go hand in hand there, but yeah, they're just two essential components to being a coach and doing what I do.
And I found that to be so important because, so many people today listen to respond. They're not like deeply listening to the person. They hear a little bit of it. They sort of tune them out because they're sort of preparing what they want to say, and then they respond to it. And that's not what your clients need. They need you to be really listening to them, so you know exactly what steps are necessary for you to be able to help them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a great point that you said. That is so accurate. And I know I'm guilty of it myself.
Sure, we all are. Yeah.
Right. Of, just listening to respond. But it's truly such an important place to be able to just listen and truly listen to someone and who they are and what they're sharing with you, instead of having something you want to interject.
Right.
So
You said, quote, you are free to begin again, to start new, to take responsibility for your life, to own your time, to be the man, partner, father, brother you choose to be, to have your desires met in and out of the bedroom, to heal the wounds, heartbreak, stigmas, and traumas that hold you back. It's time to meet the version of yourself that has everything you need to impact the world in the way you want, unquote. We talked about this. We all know change is difficult. How do you take someone from where they currently are in their sexual relationship and life to where they, deep down really want to be?
um it's it's a very individual thing. So it's, a per client thing, but
Sure.
I essentially bring in the therapy modality of talking and talk therapy, and I bring in a somatic approach. So that means bringing in the mind body connection, And so combining those two things and helping someone actually um, see that they have everything that they need for change and transformation within themselves. It's not something I do. I'm not a miracle worker. I'm not,
Right.
I don't have some magic wand. But I'm able to help people understand themselves, um, and empower them to do and to make the changes that they need and want. And so it's a process of, um, you know, getting someone to say, hey, I need support and guidance and help. And then breaking things down around like their fears, the barriers that hold them back, the mental blockages, um, and shame, and the fear that holds them back, and getting them to see it and understand it and why it's there and how it served them, and then getting them to see how it's not serving them anymore, and how we can let those things go and heal those things and move from a place of, you know, uncertainty and disempowerment and fear and shame into a place of, feeling empowered and, um, having this deep knowing of who someone is to be able to go out and make the changes necessary. So
And,
that's essentially what I do. It's,
and that's you brought up a great point there. You said that each person is going to be different because everybody's situation is different. And that goes back to the attentive listening. Because if you just had like a program response that you like, okay, it's just going to be the same for everybody. I know what I'm going to say. You wouldn't really have to listen because you already know, hey, this is what I'm going to say. But you
right.
have to listen to every single person because just like you said, everyone is different and you have different advice for different people.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. There's no one size fits all for what this looks like. And people come to me with different issues. So it's not like one thing I work on only with,
Right.
certain people. Everybody has different things that they want to focus on and change. And um, so yeah, it's very, very individualistic.
Nick B said, quote, when my wife and I sat down with Charlotte, we were able to gain awareness into our communication issues. Charlotte took the time to observe, listen, and introduce a new perspective that provided us insight into how we were communicating and how our nonverbal behavior contributed to our misunderstandings. She asked questions to help us better understand the other person's perspective and provided guidance, empathy, and tools to help us build a better emotional connection with each other, unquote. There's that important word again, empathy. Again, he mentioned about you asking questions. Is that a big part of what you do when you're working with an individual or a couple to help guide you in the direction that you want to go?
Um, Again, that kind of depends. It is definitely part of it. Is asking questions, but to for me to gain more understanding, but it's also getting someone to ask questions for themselves. So it's not just me asking questions, and trying to get a whole bunch of things out of them. It's getting them to ask themselves certain questions. So yeah, it's kind of a two-way thing there.
So when you're doing that, I'm asking this. It's interesting. Are you doing that to try to get them to where a lot of times they might answer their own questions by bringing things up?
Yes, exactly, exactly. Like again, they know a lot of the answers already, or again, that's like that empowerment piece.
Right.
And I'm just part of, I'm a guide, I'm a support system to help them uncover and understand themselves. So I definitely ask questions for me to understand more and
Sure.
understand who they are and why they're, struggling. But then getting them to ask questions, is a crucial part to transformation. And yeah.
You're helping bring it to the forefront, something they probably don't realize they already have a lot of the information and you're helping bring it out of them. I would take it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You said, quote, every day is an opportunity to begin the journey of creating the relationship you want, or you can hit the snooze button again and keep complaining about it. Loving someone is an art and a practice. People don't fall out of love. People simply fall asleep when things get stale or hard. Instead of checking in, people check out. Unquote. I love that. Explain a little bit more in detail what you mean that, people don't fall out of love. They just, fall asleep. And, maybe a few of the things in your sessions that, hit home for people to see the difference between the two.
Yeah, I think a big piece of that is when we first start dating someone, um, we we pursue them in different ways. So you're dating someone, it's new and it's exciting, um, and once we are in a long-term relationship, we let a lot of those things go. We stop dating each other. We stop pursuing each other. And that's kind of what I mean. It's learning that you should never stop dating your partner or partners. You should always continue to pursue them and do the things that you did at the very beginning. And so I think we've been taught as a culture that, once get someone and you're comfortable and you get married or whatever, like a lot of that stuff kind of goes to the wayside. Like people get busy and kids and jobs, and the whole thing is learning that your partnership should be your priority, that foundation. And so it's learning how to continue to pursue each other, instead of kind of, I hate to say it, but kind of being lazy around things, of just like letting things go. And it's really an education of understanding your partner or partners over many years, because people change. And so it's also not like the same things that worked at the beginning, of your relationship are going to still work, 5 years in. Like that person's changed, and maybe they're, they, feel love, or different things make them feel love than it did at the very beginning. So it's not hitting the snooze button. It's being aware and open and having conversations and spending time getting to know your partner throughout many years, and asking them questions, and always, wanting to understand what their inner world is for them, and what they like and what they want. And it's just open communication and being vulnerable and asking the right questions, and just always being open and taking an interest and having curiosity around your partner.
So many times people have heard throughout their life and relationships that the first few months is like the honeymoon period, maybe to the first 2, 3 months. And during that time, a lot of times, especially at the very beginning, many times we know it's a physical attraction, lots of sex all the time.
Right.
And then after that time, you're sort of, so just like you talked about, so used to each other. I would think maybe the real relationship begins after all that, like, because you know what I mean? Would you agree?
Absolutely. I would absolutely agree with that statement. Because the honeymoon stage is great. It's fun, it's exciting, it's new.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely agree that, and in some ways, real love starts there too, because a lot of that honeymoon stages was so much of just infatuation and lust, and which are all great things and wonderful.
Sure.
And not that you can't love someone in that space as well. But I think, true, real love comes with all the, hard stuff too, the nuances and the day-to-day routines, and life is busy, and dealing with, everyday life stuff, and not just the, few months or even a couple years, because the honeymoon stage can certainly range from a few months to a couple years. But yeah, that's exactly that.
Yeah, and I've had relationships that have been that way, where the first few months were just lots of sex, and then afterwards it fizzled out because stuff got harder. I was a lot more immature back in those times and stuff, and I think a lot of times even I'm guilty of it myself. I know I have a lot of friends that are. You just sort of don't want to deal with all that stuff that's hard.
Right.
I tell friends of mine all the time, when we're in our 30s and or 20s and 30s, and you're going out to bars, and you might pick up somebody and you go home with them, and you're having fun for a while, but you don't know anything about that person's life, male or female.
Right.
and children involved and all that. So there's a lot of hard stuff that people have to deal with that at the very beginning many times they don't.
Exactly. Exactly. And we, again, we've all kind of been taught to kind of put a facade on at the beginning, like show your best
Sure.
self, and like so someone doesn't get to see all your insecurities and all your traumas and all your triggers and all these other pieces of who you are. Because we've kind of been taught, like, not to share that at the
Right.
beginning. And so, the longer you're with somebody, the more that stuff eventually comes out. And it's like, oh, well, this person isn't exactly who I thought they were. And it goes both ways. So it's,
It does.
really leaning in and, seeing if there's more than just the infatuation and the sex and all the excitement there. Um,
And
and
sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't.
exactly, exactly.
One of your clients said to you, quote, Charlotte, my wife doesn't appreciate anything I do for her. She is always unhappy whenever I give her things or plan things or even try to be spontaneous, unquote. Your response was, quote, have you ever asked her what she wants? Have you asked what makes her happy? What if you were to ask what she enjoys doing or having done for her? Your client said that they hadn't, but probably should. And you said, quote, yes, this is often the major disconnect in relationships, unquote. I think that's a super important point there, Charlotte. If you could maybe elaborate a little bit more about that for the audience.
Yeah, yeah, it actually kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little earlier. It's just that the getting lazy part. It's being able to, um, when my client first started dating and first got married, he understood his wife, and it was very exciting, and he did certain things that made her happy and everything. And they've been married for several years. They have 3 little kids now. And there's a major disconnect there where he's like, oh, I was doing things that for her that I did like 5 years ago, and it's not working. And so, I was asking him, like, well, have you asked her, like, what does that look like for her now? Because now she's a mom, and she, of 3 kids. 5 years ago, you guys didn't have 3 kids.
Right.
Um, and life looked a lot different. You now have, a home and a mortgage, and, you're both working, and it just looks so different. And so it's like, have you checked in with her? And like, the person that she is now isn't the same as she was then. So, being spontaneous might, like it was 5 years ago, really exciting for her. Now it's like, oh, she has to deal with 3 kids and like
Right.
plan around, like, a date night, and like, how a sitter and what that looks like. And so it's not the same. And so you have to check in and ask questions and get curious. And that goes for men and women. I think most of us struggle to really do that, is we just kind of make assumptions, and we take information that we had from the beginning of our relationship instead of continuing to learn and grow and understand our partners. And so that's essentially what I was suggesting that he do,
Right.
to better have better connection in his marriage with his wife, is to just be vulnerable and just say, hey, I'd really like to know what would, make you happy. What would, what can we do to connect more? Since being spontaneous, like I thought would work, isn't. So, it's just getting curious and having the courage to do that, and not assume that somebody. Because again, we're always changing and evolving, and as our lives change and grow, and that's just so important.
Many times if someone doesn't ask, they could just assume in their mind, "Oh, everything's okay. There's not any problems here." And then many times the kids are sort of, I use this word, I mean, they're wonderful. Obviously, I love kids, but sometimes they're buffers. They're there and everything, and they sort of make it feel like, everything's okay, big, wonderful family or small family. And you sort of lose that connection with your spouse. And that probably can be done on an emotional level and on a physical level too, I would assume.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I 100% agree. I see that all the time, kids being the buffer. Um, and I think that's kind of where it comes back to that foundation piece of, your relationship, whatever form that is, has to be a priority. That's your foundation, of creating that security and stability, in your life. And that takes work. It takes, being able to get curious, ask questions, try new things, and not, and continuing to date your partner.
Right.
And that's what it looks like, instead of, things are okay because we have kids, and, kids are wonderful and they're an amazing asset to our lives. But they can't be that.
Right.
It doesn't work. It doesn't turn out well.
And most of the time, those kids are obviously not going to be there forever. So let's say you're married 3 or 4 years and you have a couple of kids. And so at the, 23, 25-year level, they're gone from the house. And then it's just you and, your spouse again. And so if you're not doing those things and staying connected with each other on all different levels, I guess that's probably why many times, number one, that people maybe stray in relationships and or divorces happen.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yes. It's not doing that work along the way. Exactly how you said that.
You said, quote, "It feels safer to say no. No, I am fine. No, I got this. No, I'll take care of it. No, I'm good. No, I got me and I'll figure out my way through on my own." Does that sound like you? Saying yes is a vulnerable act. It implies a step into the unknown, a risk, unquote. How do you take a new client or clients who might be skeptical of, what you do and you being able to help them, who maybe say no initially, and
Mhm.
get them to be vulnerable with you, and open up, so you're able to find out, what's really going on?
Um, well, honestly, it takes them taking a risk of, having a conversation with me. I offer free one-on-one discovery calls. So that's essentially where we, spend time, and I ask a lot of questions, and which kind of push people to open up.
Right.
But it takes initially just the reaching out and having a conversation with me. And then I spend a lot of that time just getting really curious with them, and, again, bringing back those, attentive listening and empathy skills, and just, being really, curious about what's happening for them and what made them reach out, or what makes them, um, think that they want some support and help. But I think the first step is someone has to be able to own that and say, yes, I feel stuck. I feel disempowered. I feel, um, shame. I feel, whatever it is, where there's a pain point in their life and they want something different. And so it really takes them reaching out and owning that first. And then we go from there, like I said, in a conversation, and building a relationship. That's essentially what I do too, is creating a relationship with my clients so that they feel safe, in opening up and sharing.
It's wonderful that you offer that free consultation at the beginning. That's great. So I'm happy to hear that. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end too. Leah B said, quote, "When I've been confused, frustrated, and consumed in my own thoughts, Charlotte has always helped me to see the other side in the most helpful way. She helps me to see how my husband or others could be feeling or viewing the situation when it comes to finances, travel, situations, my relationships, family, kids, confrontations, and love languages. She really helps to clarify so many things for me. She's incredibly patient, genuine, and knowledgeable," unquote. How important is it for you, Charlotte, for what you do to succeed, for the people that you're working with, uh, to be able to see from the partner's perspective?
Um, that's um, it's crucial, to having repair and connection with your partner. And that's honestly what having true empathy
Right.
is someone being able to, even if you don't understand it, or understand where someone might be experiencing something. It's being able to um, really listen and find some understanding, even if it doesn't ring true for you. It's being able to see the other person, what, coming from their own past and their own experiences of why something is, the way that it is for them. So being able to see your partner's perspective is so huge in understanding each other and true connection. Because if you don't understand each other, it's really hard to have intimacy and true connection and, ultimately a true partnership. There's a lot of disconnect if you don't. So I would say it's essential.
And many times that people probably feel like, oh, I'm doing something wrong myself, when it's not that maybe they're doing something wrong. It's just they haven't gotten the perspective of the other person to see what that other person really wants, something different from them, maybe.
Exactly. Exactly. That's hitting the nail on the head right there. That's 100% true.
I love this quote of yours. Quote, the number one reason you aren't living the life you want is because you haven't decided to create it yet. Unquote. Tell us what that means to you.
Um, it means that, life is a journey of uncertainty. However, we have a lot of control in our lives and have to be able to take responsibility for the things that we want, and go out there and make it happen. And there are definitely circumstances that make that hard or challenging or sometimes not even possible.
Sure.
But in order to create change, in order to be who we want to be the best versions of ourselves, we have to be able to take risks, get vulnerable, say yes to ourselves and to what we really want, and be able to own that. And there's just no other way around that.
I don't have anything to add to that. I think that's perfect. Great answer. You said, quote, the hottest sex I've ever had. Most of us probably have an idea or able to speak some of the best and most intense sexual experiences that we have had. However, many of us still find ourselves unfulfilled, unsatisfied, ashamed, and confused with our sex lives. Whether we're single, partnered, or dating, many of us find that we aren't having sex or enough sex, or if we're having sex, many of us still lack that element of intense desire and arousal that provides us with our hottest and best sex, unquote. Everybody, we've talked about this, everybody has stuff and issues they deal with, that probably does, affect their sex life. My question is this, Charlotte, what is the effect someone's mental health and awareness has on them, getting to the point to where they, it helps them, get more fulfilling in the bedroom?
Mental health plays a huge role in that. Yes, if any from stress to anxiety to shame, to insecurity, it's endless, but it all plays into how we feel and how we show up in the bedroom, and out of it. But yes, it plays such a huge role in the kind of sex life that we have and how we show up and what that looks like, and how we connect or not connect, in sexual experiences.
And because so many people may be going through, like, if they're depressed and, and they're not able to perform like they were before, and they maybe don't realize that it's not anything that may be physically wrong with them.
Right.
It's a mental block.
Yes. And I would say of the issues in the bedroom are actually mental blocks. I know we have a huge culture that is, all about pill pushing and
Sure.
ED pills. And though there's a place for that, and certainly, there are people who really do struggle with that, but most performance anxiety and ED issues are truly mental blocks, and issues that people feel really ashamed of and don't know how to even address. And so I think a lot of it's always easier to get a pill and take that, and that um, kind of takes effect of helping them, even though that's not essentially, it's a band-aid for what
Right.
is actually
Exactly.
going on. So it's really crucial to um, find support and help around that, and finding someone that you can open up to and share and work through that, so that it's not something that you just, you know, um, put a band-aid on and, not deal with. Um,
It masks the problem.
it does.
Right. I mean, it doesn't fix it. And sometimes it doesn't work because that wasn't the problem in the first place.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Yes.
the pharmaceutical companies, they love it. I mean, they obviously made a fortune off of, those pill, Viagra, Cialis, all those pills and everything. My dad was a doctor. He was a podiatrist for over 40 years. And in one of the offices he worked at, I can say this now, my dad's passed away. He used to bring me home samples of Viagra because the doctors obviously get all the pharmaceutical reps in there, giving them samples of everything. My dad used to bring me samples of Viagra and Cialis and all those different things there, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool for my dad to give me that kind of stuff there. Hey, I used it, but
Yeah.
right, but
Yeah. Why not? I
right,
mean, right.
absolutely, I thought that was really cool, so I was really happy. So thank you, Dad. That helped a lot many years ago. you know, you were the oldest of three kids growing up, Charlotte. And I mentioned earlier, we talked about your dad, was military, and, you talked about how you were raised, by your dad. Tell us a little bit more about him and the effect he's had on your life, and also about your siblings too.
Yeah. Well, my parents divorced when I was 8, and I had a really unique situation, where our family judge actually split the kids up. So my dad got sole custody of me, and my mom got sole custody of my siblings. And then because my dad was in the military, we traveled around, and so we moved around, and it um, my life with my dad has been like so foundational for who I am. I have an amazing relationship with my dad. I am definitely a daddy's girl. um, and so it's um, I yeah, I really cherish it. I really cherish my relationship with him, and because of my unfortunate way that I kind of grew up and being split up from my siblings, I actually have a phenomenal relationship with both my siblings now. And so in some ways I wouldn't change my past at all, because it brought me to having such strong relationships with my brother and my sister now. And it's pretty amazing. And I feel unbelievably lucky and, wealthy in that way, to have such true friendships and such strong um, bonds with them because of our childhood.
Where is your dad still in Pittsburgh?
No, my dad actually lives in Virginia, right down the street from my sister.
Oh, that's nice.
So
So
yeah,
do you get to see them often?
not as often as I'd like,
Sure.
but a couple times a year usually. So yeah, my sister's married and has 3 kids, and then my brother is also married and has 2 kids, and he lives in Boise, Idaho. So
I think I saw a picture of you with maybe one of your nephews
yes,
is that your brother or your sister's?
that would be my brother's kid.
Okay, so yeah, closer to you out there in Boise. Yeah,
Yeah.
cute kid.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you. He's like the spitting image of my brother, just with like blonde hair. So it's really cool.
that's great that you have those relationships. And I've never heard of that where a judge splits the kids up like that before. Does that happen sometimes?
Not usually. It's a very unique situation. It's definitely not common to do that. And I'm
Then it
not
worked
exactly
out.
sure why that happened, but
It worked out great though,
it did. It did. In the end, it did. It did.
and that's what matters.
Absolutely.
What are the most important lessons that you've learned in life?
Oh, wow. Um, Most important lessons. Um, I'm still working on this one, but one of them that comes to mind is just to not take things too seriously. So I definitely try to, because I can be a very serious person. So I try to make find joy in the little things and everyday things, and try not to honestly take things too personal. That's something that's been a huge lesson, is often, how we have interactions with people out in the world, and, someone, cuts you off in traffic, or, is rude to you at a restaurant, or, often understanding that, that to not take that personal, and to understand that, you know, people are human and we don't know what their story is and what their life looks like, and just to be kind and empathetic, and understanding and compassionate, and to know that likely that most of the time that isn't about you, it's about the other person.
Right.
um yeah, life lessons, connection, that's is probably, in my opinion, like one of the biggest and most important things in our lives as humans. So doing things that create that, whether that's, at a food bank and creating community there, or, that's, having date nights and true connection with your partner, a variety of that, but just, um, finding connections with people and being kind. That's just
Wonderful.
so amazing.
How can someone find you on social media to follow you, and how are they able to get in touch with you if they want to work with you and have that consultation?
Yeah. So I do have a Instagram and Facebook, and it's just under my name. So you can look me up that way, and you can send me a direct message through either of those. But I'm also very active on LinkedIn, and that's, where I spend a lot of my time, marketing. So you can find me also on LinkedIn and connect with me and send me a message, or you can email me at asatiliving@gmail.com.
And you have a website too?
I do. And that's also just asatiliving.com.
And could you spell that just so people know that,
Absolutely. It's
please?
ASATTILIVING.com.
Yeah, and I went to the website. It's a great website. So yeah, you're
Thank
doing very
you.
well with that. I think what you're doing is so important. There's so many people out there that are afraid to brace the subject with their partner or anyone else, and as I know you're aware, if you're having sexual issues with each other and they aren't fixed, the odds of that relationship working cannot be very good. The things that you've talked about today and what you're doing is spectacular, and it's easy to see why you're helping so many people. And I'm sure also saving a lot of relationships too. And I tell you, I really appreciate you coming on today. This has been great.
Thank you so much. Well, the pleasure is all mine, and I feel so honored to be here and to have had this conversation with you. And it's been a lot of fun. So thank you for your kind words and support, Michael. It's been
You're
so fun.
very welcome, and definitely will have you back again sometime down the road too.
Great. Sounds wonderful. I'm
Thank you,
looking forward to
Charlotte.
it. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.